Hey guys, so this is the Furibee Nebula 230, and it's a 230mm motor-to-motor racing quad for 5-inch props. Actually, it's about 220mm motor-to-motor, and it's a stretch X frame, so it is a little bit longer front to back versus side to side. The frame here is a composite material for the arms, 2 layers of carbon sandwiching some fiberglass, but the rest of the frame is full carbon, top plate, these little sandwich plates for the arms, and then the side plates. And then there's this like veneer or some sort of a laminate on top of the carbon for one of the layers here that gives it this sort of unique purple reflective look there. It's kind of interesting. I've been seeing more and more of this stuff coming out. I think they're just processing it so that it just kind of gives it that look. I don't think it affects the strength or gives it any more durability or anything like that. It just makes it look different. So the parts we got here are some 2205 2600 kV motors. We have some 25 amp BLS ESCs. We've got PDB there with a 5-volt 12-volt regulator and an Omnibus F4 flight controller. And then we have a switchable VTX here that goes from 0 to 25 and 300 milliwatts. Now I did not fly with the stock antenna. I switched out to this Pagoda antenna because the linear whip antenna that this came with was not very good, and I had trouble flying it, so I switched it out for this Pagoda antenna. This is a Foxeer Pagoda antenna. I'll put a link in the description of this one. Reception improved a lot with this antenna. You'll see in the FPV footage of there was hardly any breakup at all, whereas before with the linear whip antenna it was pretty much unflyable. So I was really surprised how much this made an improvement. I would recommend just throwing away the whip antenna and switching out to something like this or some sort of circular polarized antenna. The receiver antenna here is I have a single wire here. It's an XM, not an XM Plus. That's a FrSky receiver, it comes with it. Now right now, if you get the FrSky version, which comes with this receiver, I think it's on flash sale for $160. And if you get the one that's plug and play, that's got no receiver, it's $165. So you might as well just get the FrSky version and then get rid of the receiver, and you put your own receiver in there. It's actually $5 cheaper. So that's at least that's the time of this video. That's what the price is. It might be lower or more depending upon when you watch the video. So in the back here you have a buzzer and you have 4 LEDs, and then in the front here we have a 700 line CMOS CMOS FPV camera, and it's got a very narrow field of view. That's one of the things we noticed in the FPV footage. The field of view is extremely narrow. I did not like this. You could potentially switch out this lens for a GoPro lens and maybe get a larger field of view, but I did not like this camera at all. I mean, the image quality was okay for a CMOS camera, but you know, with these props and the way this frame was, the vibrations were still getting through the camera, so you still got jello. And the motors seem pretty smooth, but these, I flew with the stock props. I recommend not using these props and getting, some like Jump Van 5152s or some Cyclone props that are going to be more balanced, because then you get less jello in the video, assuming you use the camera and maybe switch the lens out. But my recommendation is just get rid of the whole camera completely. Go with something like a Foxeer Predator, or some sort of like a Runcam Swift, something sort of like a CC camera that's going to be going to give you a better image and no jello. So that's, I think, out of this whole model, this is the thing that is probably the worst, and you'll see that in the footage. I did not like this camera. I would recommend switching this out. Now in terms of the software setup, I just flew it completely stock with whatever it came with. I don't remember exactly the version, and I didn't change any of the PIDs. I just flew it exactly the way it came out of the box. And it flies okay. It's not, it does need a little bit of tuning, but if you're not into tuning or don't know how to tune, it does fly okay. It's not like it's unflyable, but obviously I think with some better props, maybe a different camera, and some tuning, I think that it'll probably fly a little bit better, and the footage will look a little bit nicer. Another downside that I should mention about this drone is that the ESCs, even though they're BLS ESCs, did not work on DShot 600. For some reason, they would only work on multi-shot. It's probably because they're using some older ESCs here that maybe have like that capacitor still on there that needs to be removed, and maybe they forgot to do that. I'm not exactly sure where these ESCs came from, but it does come out of the box configured for one shot. 125. I switched it to multi-shot, and then I just recalibrated the ESCs. You'll need to do that for multi-shot and one-shot. But once you do that, everything should be working just fine. I mean, in terms of tuning and everything, it doesn't really make that much of a difference between D-Shot 600 and multi-shot. You just have to make sure you calibrate your ESCs. Okay, so overall, my conclusion on this model is that it's an okay model. For about $150, $160, is it really worth your money, or should you get maybe like the Furibee X215? Kind of depends. It flies pretty similar to the X215, probably not as much power because this has got smaller motors. Obviously, the frame's totally different look here. I think that the X215 probably will cost about the same if they're both on flash sale. And if you like that look better, that's probably a better deal than this one. There's also the DarkMax as well. I think that one performs much better because it's got better motors than this one. So between the three, I would say like the DarkMax is my top choice, and then the X215, and then maybe this one. This one needs some work, and you have to, if you need D-Shot 600 ESCs, don't get this model. If you're okay with multi-shot, then that's not an issue. This model needs another camera. This camera is no good. I don't like it. You're gonna have to switch to that. But that's depending on which model of camera you choose. It could cost you an additional $20 to $40 for a new camera, and then you do need to get a new antenna because the antenna it comes with is no good, and that's probably another $5 to $10 for a new antenna. Obviously, you're gonna probably want to switch to props out, but I think for this and the X215, it comes with these Racer Star props. You just want to get rid of them. I think the DarkMax comes with the Gem Fan 5152, which are better props. So again, I think between those three, my recommendation is the DarkMax over these two. But if you like this look, it's not bad. It's just that keep in mind it's going to need some work so you get this model working the way you like. And speaking of additional work that I forgot to mention, is that the flight controller was wired incorrectly. It was wired into the 12-volt regulator instead of VBAT, so your voltage reading on the OSD is incorrect. It just reads 12 volts on the OSD the whole time, and that's not good. So you're gonna, and hopefully they'll fix this. I don't know, maybe in later shipments that'll be fixed, but at least in this shipment that was a problem. They wired it into the 12-volt regulator instead of the VBAT, and so in order to fix that, you have to take this whole thing apart and then rewire the wires that come from the flight controller to the PDB. Instead of going to the 12-volt regulator, you have to wire it to the VBAT. So keep that in mind. This is more additional work if you want to get this model working correctly. Anyway, enough rambling on this. I'll go ahead and show you the flight footage. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.